Hey everyone, I'm Casey with CReeves Makes, and today I'm going to build a new mobile miter saw station with folding extension wings. I recently got a new miter saw that wouldn't fit in my old station, so it was time to build a new one. One thing that I wanted to try was to implement a base that wasn't made from typical 2x4s and a bunch of screws. I chose to go with a CReeves Universal Bench Kit for this build, as they are available in a variety of configurable sizes. Simply pick the size that you want and order the leg kit to go along with it. Assembly is pretty straightforward and easy to execute. I built the bench to the instruction spec and quickly determined that I wanted to have more room for a cabinet underneath. So I modified the bench to drop the lower shelf down to the bottom of the legs. I did this by marking and drilling the holes and then adding the hardware. I then got to work cutting up and installing some 3/4 inch plywood to create the cabinet structure. I used glue and pocket holes to lock everything together. Wherever the plywood contacted the hardware from the base, I had to mark and drill out the pocket using a Forstner bit. This allows the plywood to sit flush to the inside of the frame. After the main base was mostly done, I started working on what would become the top. I had a temporary top in place, but wanted to make some raised sections that matched with the height of the saw deck. I wanted these sections to be as close as possible to the blade, so I used craft paper to lay out and mark the clearances. After I got my main design, I transferred it from the craft paper to black melamine. I then got to work cutting the melamine to match the shape, and then I made the opposite side. Based on my miter saw, I had to make some slightly different cuts to clear certain areas, but the method is simple. For what would become the final top of the bench, I chose to use black melamine as I had to buy a whole sheet of it for the project. I added some 3/4 inch plywood strips under certain areas to accommodate screws from above. The reason that I needed these sections for the screws is that I wanted to mount some T-track above to mount the miter saw to. I used the new CReeves straight edge guide to guide my router as I cut the track area with a 3/4 inch dado bit. Once all the cuts were made, I added some 5-minute epoxy and screws to secure the tracks in place. I used some toilet T-bolts and low-profile knobs to secure my saw. This will allow me to customize the saw's position or remove it for job site work in the future. Once I was happy with the layout and everything was coming together, I chose to add some black edge banding to all of the melamine parts. To start locking everything down and getting my ideas, I used super glue to hold parts together temporarily. I then added brad nails to secure the parts. After getting the parts laid out on the top where I wanted them, I marked them and then drilled 4 1/8 inch holes through the riser decks into the top of the bench. This will locate everything in the correct spot. After I drilled the 1/8 inch holes, I removed the riser decks and drilled for threaded inserts for 1/4 inch hardware. I used some super glue to install the inserts and then drilled the riser decks with a 5/16 bit for the 1/4" bolts. This little forgiveness in the size will allow for final positioning and location. Again, I used super glue to mount the deck onto the top of the risers. For now I'm going to try this without any other mechanical fasteners. If I need to in the future, I'll add some screws. Next up is the extension wings. These will fold down on each side. I started by measuring down on each side to get the length of what the wing panel should be, and then I added some extra 3/4" strips of plywood on the bottom to add some stability. Again, I used pocket holes and glue to secure everything. I bought some 1x2 maple that was S4S, and I used that for edge capping. I put a 1/4" round over on all exposed edges. To set the height of the wings, I clamped a piece of wood in place that allowed the wing to sit level to the deck. Once I had all of my marks, I secured the wood in place using glue and brad nails. I then got to work laying out the bottom side of the wing panel. To hold the wings up, I needed to make 2 supports. These would be hinged vertically to the side of the miter saw station and then have a pin location that would allow the wing to be held up once in place. Having my wings in place, I marked and laid out the hinge location. Then I drilled and installed the hinges. To mount the folding wing panels, I basically held them in place with the wings up. Then I marked the hinge location and drilled and installed screws. I made 2 small blocks to mount on the bottom of the wing panels that would catch the head of a carriage bolt. I then doubled up a piece of plywood on each folding wing panel. This would allow me to drill and center a threaded insert for the carriage bolt. Once everything was in place, I installed the carriage bolt and then centered the block and used glue and brad nails to secure it to the bottom of the wing panel. With a large level in place, I adjusted the carriage bolt until everything was flat and parallel. The cubbies on either side of the miter saw were empty, and I had thought about leaving them that way, but I decided to make 2 small drawers to fill that space. This could hold pencils, tape measures, whatever, little jigs for the miter saw, etc. I wanted to install a section of T-track on one of the wings, so I laid it out using a white pencil on the black melamine, and then using my track from my ACS, I ran the router all the way down, cutting all the way through the deck and the top of the wing section. That way the mini track would be perfectly in line with itself. I then made a small stop block to use for setting consistent repeatable cuts. Well, I have to say that with it done, I'm excited to put it to work in my shop. I love how compact it can be with the wings folded down, but yet it can still be 9 feet long with the wings folded up. I learned a lot of things with the first miter saw station that I built, and I took a lot of notes on things I wanted to add to this one. And I'm happy to say that I think I hit most of them. But if you're looking for a full set of plans for this build, check out Craig Tools' website, listed in the link in the description down below. I'd like to thank Craig Tools for sponsoring this video and supplying me with all the products to build this station. I'm Casey with CReeves Makes, and thanks for watching.